Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show. My name is Elle Russ, and I am a #1 best-selling author and master coach. My intention is to inspire, educate, and motivate you with weekly content featuring amazing guests and solo episodes. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about me, my courses, free masterclasses, partner discounts, and much more. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, Elizabeth Resnick is back with me. You can find her on Instagram at happyhealthyandhot_Elizabeth. And of course, links in the show notes to connect with her as well. Welcome back.
I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, so I decided to bring Elizabeth in for these several episodes in December. Today, we're going to talk about 2024 eliminations. The new year's coming up. I'm not a resolution person as much as I am a reevaluation and reclarification person, I think. I like to look back and take inventory, but I'm not like, okay, come January 1st, I'm quitting X. Like, that's not usually how I don't know about you. How do you feel about like New Year stuff like that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I really want to already have some momentum built that I'm just comfortably coasting into the new year. And I do, like you, I think it's a great time to reflect. And I believe in reflecting on a really regular basis. That's one of the things that I do with my journal is look at each week and kind of look back, what worked this week, what didn't. So the hope is that I'm not going into a new year with all types of major course correction that I have to do, but it is a nice time to reflect, to set some intentions for the year ahead. But no, I've never been one for resolutions, and especially the ones where you're turning your life upside down, because we know that doesn't work.
That's the multi-tiered resolution where it's like, I'm leaving my husband, I'm going to go join this boot camp. Oh, and I'm also going to film it on YouTube. I'm going to start a YouTube channel about my journey.
Yes,
and then I'm like, and there's like 800, and I'm going to become a vegan. And you're like, don't, just stop. Yeah. So we don't want to do that. But, instead of talking about New Year, New You is usually the big rush with publishing and things like that, because the diet books come out right about, you know what I mean? They come out in January, and it makes sense. But we're going to be talking about some mindset cleanup resets here. 2024 eliminations. What are you going to eliminate this year? So yeah, you can food wise, right? We talked about that in one episode, eliminating shitty oils, some health basics. But today it's like, you got to eliminate toxic people, energy drainers, maybe limiting beliefs, stumbling blocks to success, right? So I think, and you've known me long enough, I feel like I'm the queen of ditching toxic mofos when it needs to happen. It's rare, but I feel like I'm good at it.
You're really good at it, and you do it in such a clean way. And it's actually the cleanest energy. It's just like, I'm not available for this anymore. And you're so good at not overthinking that.
What I'd love to talk about, Elizabeth has been so kind to just share this, because it's a little bit vulnerable to have you talked about on many podcasts before with me on being a former people pleaser, being able to build strength and declaring boundaries and becoming that kind of boundary boss type of person. And we had a discussion long ago, but you had a situation that was tenuous, sketchy, not fun. You overcame it. You had to block someone, and it was tough for you then. If we jump to now, if you were in the same situation, you would make the same decision in 2 seconds, but it took you a while to get there. And now you're at a place where you would do it immediately. I know I wouldn't even have to sit there and try to convince you every week like I used to on that old one, but all in due time, right, everybody? You got to do these things on your own time. But I think your story is great. So would you mind sharing a little bit about this hesitant to block, and then what happened after you finally did draw the boundaries and the prizes you got from that?
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, there were several levels of blocking. So this was it's an old relationship, and that's ended, but some communication is still necessary. And it started out when I would see that they were in my Instagram stories. And the second I posted a story, and it felt very creepy. It made me uncomfortable. And yet I felt that blocking them seemed hostile because I still needed to have contact with them. and you really encouraged me to block, but I just was not there. I wasn't there yet.
Can I interject one little preface to the story that might clarify things for people? Is that this person was also someone was not like not good vibes to talk, right? Like this was
Correct.
right. It was just not good energy. And so they were also, I just want to say this, judging you and had judged you to your face about the content you were posting on
Yes.
Instagram. So it wasn't just like, oh, a person you're not having great communication with is showing up in your stories. It was someone who literally seemed like they were keeping tabs because they kept being like, you shouldn't do this. And you're right. It was very judgy. So that's part of that. I just want to.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, it was extremely judgy. And they were always making giving me a reason why they were being so judgy. And I would defend myself, try to explain myself, justify myself, which was, of course, just wasting my breath and energy because they had a picture in their head and a story they were telling. So, yes, they weren't just looking at my content. They were judging my content. They were critiquing my content and really telling me that I should not be creating this content, that it was not appropriate, all these ridiculous things. So it felt hostile to block them. I talked it over with you. I hesitated for a long time. When I did it, I remember you saying, well, how do you feel? And I was like, I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good right now. I know that I did the right thing because I knew that they would confront me with it. And they did. And I said, no.
You were prepared.
Yeah. And I kept them blocked and received prizes immediately because actually that was another time. It's so interesting. We make these energetic switches, these energetic shifts that was another time that I saw my Instagram really blow up. And that's probably right around the time I was getting close to 10,000. But that shift made a really big difference for me. So it was really like this instant, like, oh, look, you did the right thing. This little nudge that, yes, you absolutely did the right thing.
Yeah, it's that what I talk about in Confident as Fuck, which is like every time you do a you move, a boundary,
Yes.
ask for a promotion, whatever, a speak up or a fuck off. It doesn't matter when you do something like that, it's almost like the universe does deliver a little nugget or something to be like, you did the right thing, man. You did the right thing.
Yeah.
And then it felt really good though. It took a few days, took a week or whatever, but then it was like the best thing. You kept calling me and being like, can I just say how great?
Yes, I kept calling you like that was that block is the best thing. And I continue to this day, blocking someone is powerful and it can be done very quietly. It doesn't need to be with somebody you know, like anybody, if they leave a negative comment, if they're continuing like,
that's right.
Just quietly block them. Like we don't have room for that energy. And it's not even hostile. It's very much just loving yourself. And that was another shift that I made and that I have shared is that blocking someone or any healthy bound or setting boundaries in any way, it's not saying fuck you to someone else, to that person. It's saying I love you to yourself. It's actually a loving thing that you can do for yourself. So I started to look at it that way and that there's all different ways we can set boundaries. Like you don't know, it doesn't always have to be blocking somebody, but sometimes that is the best thing. So fast forward several years later, I had to, at one point, block this person from calling or texting me. So they could only contact me via email. And things were getting very uncomfortable. And I did this and it felt this time it was I didn't hesitate. I knew when it was time and I did it. And I knew I did the right thing. And they were blocked for months and maybe 9 months. And then there came a point where a situation came up where we did need to have a phone conversation. And I said, hey, I'm going to call you, or you can call me. And I temporarily unblocked them. And at this point, because of all these boundaries that I had set, showing that I wasn't tolerating certain behaviors, we actually now are able to communicate very cordially. Are we singing Kumbaya around the campfire? No, there's no need to.
No one's calling and talking about their days. That's not
what this is about.
It's workable now, and it's not like and it's also stop bugging me, man. And they stopped bugging, and they did but it's funny to me when people are like, oh, this person keeps, I'm like, that's you.
That's
You are deciding to continue to be contacted by this
right.
person. It is your decision. It goes back to what this psychologist in my Confident as Fuck book talked about, where we somehow people have this sick need to know what everyone is thinking about them or what. And so they're
Yeah.
afraid to block because it's like, well, I don't want to know. What are they going to say? You don't fucking care, do you? Because if you really get down to it, you don't. Right. But there is
Right.
that moment like where you were hesitant to block, where there's still that weird dance you're doing of like, I don't, how are they going to react? And you're caring more
I don't,
about their stuff versus you. And then you
right.
go, no, it's me. I love me.
Right. So here we are thinking we don't want to upset this person who is upsetting us on a regular basis.
That's
Like
right.
this
Yeah.
makes no sense. And now that I look at it, and I think the other thing is like to really listen, tune in with your body and see how things feel in your body. I blocked this person from calling or texting me because it got to a point that when I saw that they were calling or I saw that they had texted, at first I just took them off of text notifications, but I had a feeling of tightness in my body, like it was uncomfortable. And that to me is a clear indication that something needs to change. Now, if I see they've texted, it's like, oh, okay. When I have, I'll get back
Yeah,
to them when I have a moment. And it's not even a thing.
I love it. I want to another elimination kind of thing that might be subtle, but it'll seem obvious is judging other people. Now, usually when we talk about that, it's in like broad strokes or mean judging. I want to talk about the subtleties. So, for example, okay, so in my communicate course, in my TV and screenwriting section, I talk about where I went on this hike and I was alone on this trail in Malibu, and this lovely grandma lady ahead of me was walking her dog, and I walked up and pet the dog, and then we just kind of started talking and walking. And I'm literally just like, sweet grandma. And she says, what do you do? And I said, I'm a writer. She said, what kind of writer? And I said, I'm a comedy writer. And she said, this is many years ago when I was really actively doing that. And she said, oh, you know what? My husband and I have been looking for a comedy writer. And literally the first judgment that went through my head was like, what the fuck is that? Like, what?
Yeah,
Like, why would a grandma? Like, what do you mean? Like, this is some bullshit. Cut to she is a multiple Academy Award winning producer.
of course she is.
How dare I discounted some older woman on the trail thinking she was some
Yes.
fucking just a grandma? Who the fuck? Like, I'm just willing to admit that dumb judgment. We all do it. I know you're out
Yes,
there
we
listening,
have
and we've all done
done.
stuff like this. So
Mhm.
it's not just about weight, right? I've talked about that before. You don't know if that person who's obese, who even, I don't care if they're pigging out at the buffet, you don't know they don't have an eating disorder caused by some hypothyroidism shit and some fucked up horrible
Right.
thing. Like, we
Right.
don't know. So, but that's like an obvious blanket judgment. I'm talking about, and then I remember another time I was in Hawaii years ago. This is on this was an amazing manifestation. I won a stand-up paddleboard that I intended to win before I went to Maui, and I ended up
Yes, I
entering
love
this
that.
contest and I won it. But anyway, so before that, it was like I knew I wanted to get in the right space for that event so I could like win that board. And I was with a friend at the time. We were traveling together, and it was like a week before the event. We were there for a couple weeks. It was like a week before. It was sorry, it was a couple days before. And we were driving around, and we had just had some friends who had their honeymoon in Maui, but they're kind of they're not active. Okay. So they just really sat at the hotel and literally probably went to and from next door bars, and like that's it. Like that's all they did. And we kind of knew that's what they did. And she was like, I can't believe that like that's all they did. Like they didn't go here, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, like totally judging their
Mhm.
vacation and their honeymoon. Now,
Yes.
I get that. Like, and here's the thing. If we were to really look at it, it'd be like, well, would they have had a more enriching, enlightening experience had they done A, B, C, and D and all the things that my friend and I were doing? Maybe, maybe not. That doesn't freaking matter. They're doing it how they want to do it.
Yeah.
You know? And so I remember I actually said something to her. I go, hey, I'm like, listen, I'm trying to get into a intention vibe here. And we're being you're being downery. I get it. It's not how you and I would do it, but let's get out of judgment right now, because I'm just hearing like we're away for like, let's not, it's sounding catty, sounding
Right. Right.
Judgy. And so that's why I'm just talking like subtle judgments. Look at every single judgment you make when you have the thought on the street, like, oh, that's a cute grandma. Just maybe go, you know what though? She might be a fucking badass
Right. Right. I
we just
love
don't
that.
know. So how
Yes.
about eliminating judgments? But I think spending some time, do you know what I mean? But by the way, I'm sure it's going to happen to me when I'm older. Someone's going to discount me. We've all been discounted in some
We
way,
have
right?
all
I'm sure
been,
if you're a woman, it's happened a million times, just naturally. So I like that. So yeah, energy drainers, toxic people. Let's talk about all sorts of stuff. But what are your thoughts on this? The little subtle judgments.
well, yeah, I definitely, and I think we can all, I love that. I think we can all catch ourselves doing those things. And, who are we to know what's best for other people? Just as other people are certainly discounting us, judging us at times. Another thing that I really think is great to eliminate and can really change your life is just to look at your calendar and like, don't do shit you don't want to do. Like the social app, like don't say yes to, I used to say yes to a lot of get-togethers, social things, kind of like I didn't want to be left out. I didn't want them talking about me if I wasn't there. And now I'm like, do I want to go out and meet people for drinks on a Thursday night? No, I actually don't. So just to not do thing again, it's the people pleasing. But as you start really making space for the things and the people and the activities that matter to you, and you also have space just to do your own and not saying yes to things that you don't really care about or you don't actually want to do. You just think that you quote unquote should do, just frees up a lot.
Well, on the back end of that, not people pleasing per se, but overgiving, another thing.
Yes.
Which was a former problem of mine, which sometimes overgiving can be people pleasing, but sometimes it could just be like alpha, stupid, control-y, whatever, not releasing, you know what I mean? And so that's another aspect right there.
Yes.
That's the back side of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see. Limiting beliefs is such a thrown around term. It's overused. And I think it's so vague. I'm not sure people, and what's said about limiting beliefs is like, oh, if you keep, searching for them, you'll find them. Right. But in 2024, it's like, if you're looking at goals and what you want to accomplish, maybe this next year, what are some things that have been perhaps holding you back mentally? There's usually mindset stumbling blocks of some kind. You and I have been talking about this a lot lately, personally, on little aspects and nuances of this. But it just could be an idea of, I'll give a great one. Years ago, I've used this example before, but I was helping someone was moving to another state and they were looking for jobs. And they were like, they found out that years ago, I used to be a recruiter and look at resumes. And they were like, hey, will you look at my resume? So we're going through the resume, we're shaping it up. And I said, hey, by the way, like, what are you looking to make? Like, what do you want in terms of your life with income? And he goes, and he also knew Mark Sisson, and Mark Sisson at the time was very successful. You can look up Mark Sisson if you're listening and don't know who he is, multimillionaire. And he goes, well, I mean, like, he's like 200 a year would be good. He goes like, I mean, I don't need to be like Mark Sisson wealthy, but like I 200 a year would be good. And I said, what did you just say? I go, stop. I go, what would you want in an ideal world? What would you like? Would you like to be Mark Sisson wealthy?
Yeah.
Like, because that's available for you, just so you know. You don't have to want it. I'm just saying, though, if you want it. And he was like, well, and I go, you are limiting your idea of yourself and what you can make. You've already set a ceiling at 200. You're good with that's your, it's almost like it's your maximum, not your minimum. I would have loved if I heard minimum. I loved if I heard like, 200 grand minimum. And then I want to keep climbing from there. That's what I'd love to hear from them. By the way, this person then did eventually do extremely well. Extremely well. But that is a thing, right? Like, so what kind of things are you saying to yourself as you're listening or throughout this year? Like, think about, what are you saying to yourself? I can't do that. I can't publish a book. I'll never get an agent. Well, sorry, there's so many ways around that. You could self-publish. Like, what are your limiting stumbling block? What are some?
And I'll tell you when I'm, and I know you and I have talked about this, but I still say like, oh, I'm not techie. Oh, I don't know. And I started just that was an excuse for so many things. That was why it took so long to start my blog. And then one day I was just said, I'm going to figure this out. And I just sat down in Starbucks and figured out how to use WordPress.com. And it took me a while. And that's not stuff that comes naturally to me, but the confidence that comes when you start to dive into those things, because they're just stories. And just taking that action is actually ends up feeling really good instead of always telling that same old story. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. Guess what? What if you just dive in and at least give it a try, at least get the ball rolling and then get the help when you need the help?
I love that one. And that's a flip side of eliminations. What are you going to add? What are the additions in 2024? And maybe it is taking a little stab at something you think you're bad at. I remember years ago, I kept saying I was bad at math and bad at math. I don't like math. I'll still say it. I'm not interested in it. Okay. If I applied myself, sure. I don't want it. I don't want to do it. I just don't want to do it. But I used to say this about myself. And that's why I was like, no, I can't learn how to scuba dive. I can't factor in all of these mathematical things going on, and by the way, I found out that I hated it, not because of that. I actually found out I was good at it and I did well in the test, and it kind of made sense to me. Again, when I applied, when it came time to actually be like, force yourself to sit down and learn, I enjoyed it. Have I forgotten everything from 15 years ago? And could I go out and scuba dive now? No. And then I scuba dived and I was like, I hate this. And here's why. It was because I love swimming. I'm a swimmer. And so this weird thing of like floating and like in water without swimming, you know what I mean? So I realized I like free diving and snorkeling more. I just don't want to scuba. I don't want to be, and it felt weird to have all this stuff on me and I just didn't like it. So, but it was a challenge in the beginning and I had this story and I actually talked to my coach at the time. I'm like, I'm going to take scuba diving and I'm feeling like I'm a dumbass with math and I'm an idiot and I've had this story about it and like, we need to change this. And we worked on it and like, it was a nice feeling of accomplishment and confidence to realize that, yes, I get it. And here's the truth still. I don't want it. I don't like it. And I don't want to do it. That's okay. But I went for it. So there might be something you can add this year. Is there something you were not only afraid of, but is there something you don't think you're smart enough for that maybe you just need to go learn and figure out? Is it watching a YouTube video? And will you feel better at the end of that 5 minutes for going, you know what? I have a clear understanding. And speaking of technology, and Elizabeth knows this because I changed my technology when I started to do courses over a year ago. And I designed and did the entire website by myself, did pay an expert for about 5 hours of help to like double check my stuff and make sure. And, she taught me things I didn't know and I definitely needed her. But instead of completely farm it out, and now it feels so good that if I need to change something or do something, I can do it quickly. Can still have people manage it, but that I know in a matter of seconds of something, I can go in because I know it. And look, it was trial and error, and you were with me along that process, Elizabeth. And now I feel so much more confident, and I'm not a techie either.
Right. So it's that whole idea too of that thing that you've been putting off. What if you just, whether it's the writing the book, creating the website, starting the business, what baby steps can you start taking to get you there? What can you commit? What little actions can you start taking? Because it's amazing when you start, once you start, like then like you think this is so overwhelming, but once you start, then you know what the right step is. And then you get help as you need it. But you find out that it's not as intimidating as you thought it was.
It is not. So any other, I think boundaries are good. I would like to offer that if you're looking to sort of limit interaction with toxic people, family, relatives during this new year, or you want to take a different stance there with like, hey, who am I spending my time with? It doesn't have to be a declaration. It can be you don't call back for a couple of days versus maybe used to pick up or call back a few hours, It could be a text back, hey, I'll call you in a few days. I'm dealing, you don't have to justify or explain. It can be a slow fade. You know what I mean? Sometimes those are the best. It could just be not answering. Sometimes you just don't have to do it directly. But
yeah, I like that you said, I'm glad that you said that because I think sometimes, first of all, blocking certainly isn't necessary in a lot of cases. But sometimes it's just like, this person is going to be less of a priority. And you're right. You don't text back immediately. You're not as engaged. There's no bad blood. There's no hard feelings, but you're just that person. And, pay attention to how you feel around people. And that person who's always draining your energy, then that's the person that you start to just, you don't give them as much of your energy.
And not to go downer here, but on that note, we in the health industry had a situation where, like Elizabeth, a few other people, women particularly, we were like, about somebody in the industry. We'd always kind of been a little like, a feeling. We couldn't totally put our finger on it, but it was not overall positive, right? There was a thing. We all had it. Then it turns out that guy's now in prison for some horrible things. So you know what? You got to go with your gut. And if it's persistent and this is the way you keep feeling, I remember years ago, this was literally like a old college roommate. And she was hilarious and so much fun to hang out with. But she was also really jealous and had like a lot of drama and was kind of moody and stuff like that. But over time, it just got too much. And it was like, I don't know, I just have to it felt bad. She was like a college roommate, bud, you know what I mean? But this is what I noticed. It was that every time I hung out with her afterwards, I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't feel good. I couldn't totally put my finger on why until later. I just knew the feeling. And I remember thinking, why would I continue to hang out with someone just because we have this affiliation, right? This sisterhood-y affiliation-y thing, right? Kind of, college roommate, right? That's your,
right.
buds. And we're all close, so it was like, we're all buds, and, went to her family's house for Thanksgiving, you know what I mean? So it was tough, but I just had to go with that because I dreaded sort of hanging out with her because of the after effect.
Yeah. Now, when you
of the overall vibe, even though we might have a good time during that time, but there was still something there.
Yeah. No, it's really pay attention. The more you tune into that whole, your intuition and how you're feeling. And it's the same, then there are those other people that lift you up. You feel good after a conversation or spending time with them. You feel inspired. You feel better. You're so glad you did it. Then those are the people that deserve your energy. I mean, I really look at it, just as like keeping a tight circle, and my energy is very exclusive, and I'm just not giving it out to everybody.
Yeah. So new year, new you, new year, new tribe, maybe, depending on what you're dealing with out there. So best of luck. Also, Elizabeth, tell everyone how we can find you again. And also, Elizabeth has a great cookbook that literally people have let's talk about that for a second. Oh. People have literally just done it, lost weight, a ton of weight by doing the cookbook.
One woman reached out to me and said she is down a pant size just from starting using the recipes in my cookbook on a regular basis. Another woman who, did work with me for just a few coaching sessions, but basically before my cookbook was a thing, was using my simple high protein recipes and lost 35 pounds and has kept it off. And she's in her 60s now, and literally changed her entire life in the process. But it's great. And it's crazy what a difference it can make just putting real food in your body and getting the protein in. So the cookbook is amazing. People are seeing results just from using my cookbook. And it's $17. It's like such a no-brainer price.
I love it. All right. And we can find Elizabeth at happy, healthy, and hot _Elizabeth on Instagram. You can also go to the show notes to get direct links to her and her newsletter. And any other thoughts before we close it out?
No, just let's make 2024 amazing.
Absolutely. I hope everyone has a wonderful new year, and we'll see you in 2024. Hey listeners, over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products, and I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.